Our next speaker is Kirk Duncan. He is president of a company called 3 Key Elements. Has anybody here ever gone to a class that Kirk or his wife Kim have taught? There's a few of you? Awesome. All of you should do it. Earlier this year, our daughter Aspen was watching videos on YouTube. Somebody sent her one of Kirk. She got hooked watching these videos and convinced my wife to take a look at it and, got interested in it. And she came to me in like April or something and said, hey, for our anniversary this year, I want to plan, where we go. And I was like, okay, sure, without realizing what I just kind of committed myself to. And she said, I want to go to Kirk and Kim Duncan's Royalty and Romance Conference. And I was like, you're kidding. And the first thing we got there, Kirk says, all right, all you guys, how many of you are dreading being here? And I was like, But as many of you know, after that event, I sent out an email telling all of you you need to go because it was a fantastic event. Kirk's an awesome trainer, mentor. He has been doing, oh, thanks, look at that. Now I'm official with another mic. There we go, if you can hear that better. He does all kinds of different trainings and seminars, and I just highly encourage you to look up his website, 3keyelements.com. If he doesn't mention that, I will. So I'm really excited to have Kirk here. One of the things he's going to talk to us about is just tip of the iceberg of what he knows and teaches in terms of dealing with emotions. And then he's going to apply that to school settings and at home and give us kind of a vision of how he looks at education. And so with that, please welcome Kirk Duncan.
Thank you. Well, super great to be with you here today. And thank you, Oak, for inviting me. This neighborhood, what I love about this neighborhood in this area of the valley is my great-great-grandfather. When he came here to Utah from Wyoming, they came across the whole United States to get here, but when they moved here into the valley, they settled in this area. And the Duncans are rock workers or quarry workers, and they come from Scotland. And so my ancestors worked in the rock quarries in cutting, chiseling, shaping rock to build buildings. And so when my great-great-grandfather moved into this valley right in this area, he brought those skills with him to be in the rock business. And so there's a lot of homes here in these neighborhoods that have been built by my ancestors. And so if you live in a rock home, if you go like rock blocks, if you go look in the top right corner of the front of your house, you may see the initials of my grandfather that he put in the rock. So every home that they built in this valley, they put their initials in the top right corner, and you would never even know they're there. In fact, when my mom was in town one time, we took a tour, and we just were going from neighborhood to neighborhood of all these homes, and going and knocking on the doors and saying, hey, did you know who built this house? And we'd show them where the initials were, and they never even saw those initials. They were up there. And then my great-great-grandfather then was hired, or volunteered to go down to Salt Lake City 5 to 6 days a week to build the Salt Lake Temple and to be part of that rock work. When they'd bring the stones down out of the mountain, he was part of the rock quarry guys who chiseled and shaped those stones. So I put a picture up here on the screen. This is my mom and dad. I'm the oldest of 6, and as I grew up, with my parents, just like any parents, we all do our best to be able to, teach our kids, raise our kids right. They would teach me everything that hopefully I would need to know, and I love my mom and dad. And they take their wisdom and pass it on to me. And, this is me heading off to school, and I'm going to go learn from other people, that are trained and qualified to teach me life skills. And this is my elementary school that I went to as a kid. And as I went to school, I was terrible in school. I just couldn't listen to the teachers. I failed a test. Just a complete Terrible, terrible, terrible. And so they had to put me in different classes because I was very slow, I couldn't comprehend, and I could not absorb what I was learning. And so they had to help me out all the way through school. In 6th grade, I took a spelling test, and in 6th grade, failed every word on the test. My mom was just like, oh boy, we gotta help this kid. But my brother and my 4 sisters, they all did really well in school, but man, I just struggled going through school. Now, as I get out of school, I go to high school, and I finished with a 2.6 grade point average, and that's because my mom did half my homework, and my brother did the other half. And then all the tests I'd fail, I would have to do all this bonus work to get any type of grade to be able to get out of high school, get out of prison. And so I just was like, I can't stand this stuff. As soon as I got out of school, I was like, oh my gosh, I can have a life, right? So then I get married. First I go on a mission to West Virginia, and I come home, and I get married, and then now I'm the dad. Or I'm the husband first, and then I have my first child, and it's like, oh my goodness, I'm the dad. And all of a sudden things are turned now. It's like, wow, I gotta teach my child everything I learned. Wow, I don't know how I'm gonna do this one. And the first couple of years being married and having a child, I failed a lot. I didn't do well. I could not produce an income. I could not take care of the bills. I could not account for things. I just skillless. I know that's not a word, but I just didn't have any skills. And I started looking for education to help me. And I know that God loves me because he put me in front of the right people at the right time with the right kind of skills. And one of the first skills that I learned was about how my brain works when it comes to imagery. Now, the person I learned from wasn't a professor. They weren't, some scientists, and it wasn't like, the person didn't know all the scientific reasons, but this person taught me about how it's important to have something in your mind that you are moving towards and to be able to visualize or imagine this project or this goal happening. And I was like, my head hurts. I don't know how to visualize. I don't know how to imagine things. And he started to teach me. He's like one of my first mentors, my first teachers. And it just hurt my head. Because I don't know how many of you have watched the Lego movie. Anybody watch the Lego movie? Like 5 of us. In the movie when they go into his head to find everything that he's created for and his brain's completely empty. I found out on this day, my brain's empty. I got nothing in there. And so when my mentor said, hey, let's start putting some things into your mind so that you can start to use the function of your mind of visualization to literally build who you are and build your life. Because if you can't see it, you're not gonna get there. And so, huge. This is my real first time really getting interested in education. And this was bigger than anything I'd learned in elementary school all the way through everything. K through 12, it's like, oh my goodness, I am learning how to activate the function of my mind that God gave me to actually use imagery. I can use this. And as I began to use this imagery principle, I started to imagine things, not fantasize. That's all on fairy tale world. I'm talking about real imagery, actively moving pictures and images in my mind of how I want things to happen. And just activating this one function in my head was a game changer. This one function. I went from a struggling husband and a struggling dad to picking something I wish could happen. I picked a goal. I'd never set goals in my entire life. And I picked a goal. And I used this visual or imagery process. It's a function of the mind. And I'd never used it before, and I activated my mind to create. And I started taking steps towards this goal because in my mind, I already saw the whole thing happening. saw everything. I knew how the whole thing was going to happen. And I accomplished this particular goal. And my wife was like, what in the world just happened to you? Like, you're more handsome now. You were like, you're cuter. You're like more successful. I'm like, whoa, I should do that again. I was like, yeah, I'm worth something now. She goes, yeah, whatever you just did, do that again. But she never asked me what I did. She goes, whatever you did, that worked, do it again. I said, it's really easy. You just pick something, you close your eyes, and you produce the movie in your head, and you use that as the guiding direction, and you go that way, and it happens. And she's like, well, that doesn't make sense. And I go, but it works for me. Big change in my life. To activate a God-given skill. Activate that function. Next one that I learned is the power of language. Not just how I talk, because I still struggle with grammar and all that kind of stuff, but I'm talking about the internal critic on the inside of my head. This is my second big problem that I was facing, is I could not control what was being said in my head. And I didn't know I was not controlling it until the worst day of my life happened. I'm driving home from work, and this is the day I realized I could not control the talking inside my head, because the talking inside my head went bad. It went so bad, every step in my head was, I'm worthless. Even though I can accomplish goals, I'm still worthless, and you know what? You just need to end your life. And the day happened that I was driving home to go take my life because of the inside talking inside my head. I could visualize goals and I could accomplish all kinds of goals, but it didn't save my life. There's another component, and it's internal conversations. And these internal conversations direct people's actions. They were directing my actions. And of course, I didn't take my life that day, but I learned that day that I did not have the power to control what was going on inside my head. And I want to figure this out. Nobody taught me this in school. My mom and dad didn't teach me this. I never had a friend, a teacher anywhere say, you have a voice inside your head and you get to control that. And if you don't control that, your life is going to go all over the place. Even though I could visualize, there's a second component of managing language, inside language, which then affects the outside language. Now, the next thing that happened to me, and God loves me and he put me on this path of learning and education, I found that I could visualize and I could manage and control this language inside my head. But then there's this thing that happens. I'm sitting on the couch. I know what I need to do. I can talk to myself and tell myself I ought to do it. But then the third thing was, I actually heard myself say one day, I don't feel like it. I know I should do this, but I don't feel like it. And it dawned on me, there is a third power. There's a third function here that is super important to manage. And it was out of control because I knew these things, but I couldn't get myself to get up and go when it was time to get up and go. And so my course of education that God has put me on is to learn about these three functions. Now, it was for me, totally for me. But as I learned about these functions and I started using these, that these are mine, my life started to change. And it's like I started doing things better because I could manage all three, and I could evaluate them, I could manage them, I could change them, I could choose them. And when I can make choices, I have control of my life. But when these make choices for me, I'm out of control. And it doesn't matter how much I know. I could be the smartest person on the planet, but if I cannot control these on the inside, I am still out of control. And I had reckless stuff going on in my life, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to govern my life. And I was one of those people that would say, oh, well, this didn't happen in my life. That means God didn't want me to do it. I since have unsubscribed from that thinking. I no longer blame God, and I no longer blame the devil. There is no blame issued. Where I stand now is in the belief I'm out of whack. I'm out of alignment. Before I ever blame the devil or ever blame God, I have to self-check. and go, am I in alignment? Because today I think people blame the devil and they blame God way too much. Way too much. It's like, just cut all the blame. We have to get inside ourselves and learn how to govern ourselves in these three categories. If not, we are a people who are losing power. Because when we can't control our inside world, we can't control our outside world. If we can't influence our insides, how are we supposed to influence the outsides, right? It's like, that's just not going to happen. And so as I started doing better with this, my life's changing, and then I have a person walk up to me and say, hey, I saw you used to be struggling, and now you're doing good. What'd you do different? And I said, there's three things. There's three key elements you got to focus on. And I don't know where they're teaching this. I didn't hear it in school. I don't remember the day that the curriculum was put in front of me. You have emotions. And this is how they get in you. And this is how you get them out of you. And this is how you manage them. And this is how you evaluate. And this is how you measure. I didn't hear any of that. Internal language management, never heard that ever. It's not even in training. It's for some reason, it's just assumed, even though we all go through these three and we all have these three, it's not focused on. No wonder divorce rate is going through the ceiling. No wonder the number of people filing bankruptcy is going through the ceiling. No wonder people are dealing with anxiety, because they don't know how to manage the three key elements inside of who they are. If you can't manage these, of course you're afraid. If you can't manage these, of course you're struggling and you have no idea what to do next in your life. No, it's no wonder. Anxiety comes from the fact that you can't see where you're going. It's all catastrophic. You got an internal critic just ripping you to shreds on the inside, and you can't manage your emotions. That other people can trigger you. And today we have a big issue with being triggered by children, by bills, by other people, by our neighbors, by the world. And people who are triggered are out of control. They're reckless. And I don't know about you, but I am not going to get swept up into being afraid, and I'm not going to get swept up into being scared. I'm not going to get swept up into I'm stuck. People who are stuck is because they have missed where education really needs to happen. What's going on inside of a person in their functions, how they function. Because smarts is good, but I've met plenty of people who are smart who have these three completely out of whack, and they cannot govern themselves. And they're scared, they're worried, they run away from things, they won't take bold steps. And you all know we need people who are strong. We need people who just have that determination inside of them that nothing scares them. We are raising a generation of children right now that they are either going to be full of faith or full of fear. There is no middle ground anymore. There is no middle ground. You are one or the other. There's two groups, faith-filled or fear-filled. And watch, you will be looking for something to teach them who are in fear, and you'll be wondering, what do we help to do? What do we do with this child or this adult that's in a state of fear? And you're going to find sooner or later, it's inside these three categories. And I didn't learn it in school, so I can't poke at schools. I'm not a good student when I was growing up, but now I'm an adult. I'm 50 years old. I've got 3 kids. They've all moved, they're all older now. But so now I teach people. And as people came to me and they're like, hey, can you teach me this? And I'm like, yeah, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. And every person I teach who even dabbles in these 3, the testimonial comes back of like, you're not going to believe what's happening to me. I'm like, let me guess. Let me guess. Clarity is happening. Yeah, how'd you know that? Confidence is happening. Yeah, how'd you know that? Because this creates clarity, this creates confidence, and this creates choice. Clarity, confidence, and choice happens to every human being. And the reason why when you manage emotions that you start to have choice is because now your emotions don't decide what you do or not. How many times have you not taken the step because you were grumpy or you didn't feel like it? Like, do your feelings really control you? And if your feelings control you, you have no choice. And if we're going to be the kind of people to change America and change the way things are going, we're going to have choice. We need people who actually can manage their emotions. And also, not just us, but to teach the children how to manage their emotions. Because right now it's out of control. It is out of control. So we want, children to grow up and adults to grow up that their smarts are going to be high, they're going to be able to pick great goals, and their smarts are going to take them to their goal. But here's the challenge. This is what's going on. People today are basing who they are and what they're going to do based upon how they feel about themselves. Well, I don't feel like doing that. It's like, well, okay, what feeling's controlling you? And when their feelings are down, they're not going to accomplish their goals. They're not going to make it. And if we keep having everyone else, around us making decisions off feelings, and they don't even understand them, are they really making the best choice? So as we're teaching education and we're teaching all the smarts of life, I think if we miss out on teaching the emotional management, the internal voice management, and also the imagery management, if those three are not governed, we're going to find ourselves with a generation of highly sensitive people. This generation right now, these kids, oh my goodness, from 5 years old to 21 years old right now are super sensitive, and they don't know how to control it. They don't even know where it's coming from. And I know science is getting in there, and they're saying it's diet, and it's the red dye, it's the yellow dyes, and it's all this stuff. Okay, so they're all infected with stuff, but why are they not taking responsibility? Instead of blaming everything that they've been eating, you can take somebody and teach them techniques that they can manage those, so we can move this back up. Okay, so here's the consideration about emotions, is that I really believe emotions ought to be an actual subject. It needs to be a subject. Math, literature, emotions. Children don't know where emotions come from. All they know is their brother made them mad. And wives think their husbands make them mad. Everybody's always blaming somebody else for an emotion. They don't even know where it comes from. And so since people are so much in blame, it's not a focus. And it's going to get worse. And I don't know if you study your scriptures or not, but it says the devil stirred the hearts of men. The devil knows if he can stick his stick in us and that emotion is in there, he can stir that pot and fire that person up, and now the person just goes around hurting people. The emotions are in us. And if we don't learn how to manage them, we're going to cause problems, and people are going to get hurt, and we're going to just pass it on to the next generation. So I don't know, if I could go back to school, and I know what I know right now, I would go to my first grade teacher or my kindergarten teacher and I'd say, hey, can you teach me about emotions? Because my mom's mad at my dad, what do I do? If I go back to when I was in school and I asked that question, my teacher would say, well, turn your frown around to a smile and everything will be just fine. Like, no emotional management techniques. My mom and my dad did not teach me emotional management techniques. I haven't seen where this is at. And so, but now I teach my kids. Better believe it. Better believe that this right here, these three right here, have been taught in my home above everything else. My children are going to be able to manage themselves with what's coming next in this world. Because if you can't hold your brain still and hold your imagery still, and you can't manage your inside critic, and you can't manage your emotions, you're going to be out of control. You're going to lose it. You're going to lose it. And you know what happens to people when they lose it? They either shut down, or they run away, or they get mad at their family, and it's their husband, their spouse, and they get divorced. Not saying that you're this way. You might be just this way, where you have just one glitch inside. You got one emotional pocket that's there, and it's not really going to hurt anybody yet because it hasn't been stirred up yet. Or you could be like this person. And right now, just reach over to the person next to you and kind of shake them and tell them, I think that's you, actually. Just kind of shake the person next to you. Just shake them a little bit, like, I think that might be you. You might need a little bit of work, but it's okay. This one would be me. You know, this is when I figured out, like, wow, I got to work on myself. I got to do something. So as I went to work on myself, I had to first study and go, what's happening here? What's the most common emotional release technique? Oh, unload on another person. Children are great triggers. You can feel bad and whatever, and then that child will just do the exact thing that needed to happen to go boom. And if you're a mom or a dad, a grandpa and grandma, you know you just boom, and it comes out. But then here's the deceiving part. When we unload our emotions on our lawnmower or the computer or the broken down car or the house or another person, we think that it goes away. And it doesn't go away. It goes into the other person's mind, it gets inside of them, and then what happens is our emotion condenses. It just shrinks down for a moment. A temporary sense of relief. Just a temporary sense of relief because we got the buildup off. And then we feel better, but then we feel bad because we just yelled at somebody or we got mad at somebody like that. But we hurt people. And I think something that needs to happen is we need to teach children and teach each other how to stop hurting each other. Let's talk. Let's don't hurt. Let's change this. But then what happens is the adults pass it on to the children. And now the children have an adult emotion inside their little bodies, and they don't know how to manage it. So they act out. The children today are super sensitive. And why are they sensitive? Is because they are gifted. We have children right now that are in the ages of 5 to 18, 19 years old who are trying to figure out why are they so sensitive. It's because it is a spiritual gift. They can read each other. They can understand what's going on around them. And if we don't help children understand imagery, their internal critic, and their emotions, their gifts are going to get smothered with fear. And that's the devil's plan, is to get everybody emotionally amped up, get negative talking in their head, and catastrophize it, make it a complete catastrophe in their head. And then we got these children that are growing up that they're trying so hard, but their insides are just struggling. And so here's what I suggest. You all are super creative, but I hope with my being here today that I can stir somebody to think this way. And hopefully in your curriculum, the way you do things, that you take this serious and that you go to apply that emotions and internal talking inside their head and imagery, that these are actually subjects. It's not just something you do because you're learning something else, but you take these as 3 topics and 3 subjects that need to be taught, studied, practiced, and developed inside each child. But here's what you can develop. And I know you're super creative, but to be able to develop a way that they can learn emotional management. Out of all 3 of them, the emotional management right now is the most important. It is the most important because, again, you can have somebody who has smarts, they know what to do, but if they don't feel like they're going to do it, they don't want to do it. They won't do it. So this is what you do. Simple process. However, this is a journaling process. Emotions can be released through writing them down on paper. They do not have to be released by telling another person or yelling at another person or unloading on another person. But emotions can come up and out and actually go away. And this is what I do. I teach 174 live events a year. 174 live events a year. I've done over 5,800 presentations, and with my simple approach to this, it's changing families, it's changing marriages, it's saving children, it's helping children believe in themselves. That you take the emotion, you write it down, and after you write it down, you throw it away. It's an up, out, and away. But if we could teach our children, don't stuff it and don't unload it on another person and hurt them, we're going to do an emotional release technique every day. If a person is not doing an emotional release technique each day, Those emotions are controlling your choices, and you are not on track. Your emotions are pulling you off track. And I'm talking about negative emotions. I'll get to the end here really quick, and we'll do some questions here. But let me just show you some other things here. So this is what happens. Emotions take up space. When we are angry or we're upset, do we really want to sit there and learn something? We're not going to listen. We are just not going to listen. And so emotions don't just happen in adults. They are like 5 and 10 times as worse in teenagers and kids, because they don't get to just yell at each other and get away with it like adults do. Kids have to be good. They have to follow the rules. They have to be nice. And they're taught that they can't express their emotions. And so when a student is all amped up in emotions, their learning levels are going to be low. And their ability to be able to exercise their natural gifts is going to be low. So when they practice emotional release techniques each day, simple journaling, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to suggest to you, it clears the space to allow intelligence to go in. Negative emotions and intelligence. You know, when I take intelligence in, it's information. Emotion is information. And if I'm full of emotion, I can't take in information. There's not room. But if we help them clear the space, they can listen and they can learn. And so we choose, you know, how do we want to help them grow up to be? Because every child is hopefully going to get married and have a family. But if they never learned about their emotions, they're going to struggle. You know, and with divorce going up and up, we don't even know if they're even going to get married anymore. The way it goes, say, we have teenagers now who don't even want to drive. Like, I'm not going to get my driver's license for a while because they're scared. Okay, so how do we do this? There's 3 simple techniques, and there's so much creativity here that can be done. But here's my suggestion. Over the last 10 years of teaching people how to do an emotional management process, I break it down just to 3 simple sentences. They're different, and they do different things. They address certain areas of the way that the mind is storing information. The first sentence addresses the way that the mind is storing their emotional information based upon themselves. The second one, it addresses the area that they feel upset at mom because, or they feel mad at dad because. So now it's how they feel about something else. And then the last one is I feel upset about my bad grades because. So the top one is them, the middle one is their feelings towards another person, and the last one here could be about another person or it could be about a situation. And so emotional management, just to keep it simple, has like 3 different categories. And you notice the blanks. The nice thing is if you teach a youth or teach an adult these 3 techniques, then they have options of where they need to go to be able to get their emotions out of them so it doesn't affect their choices for that day. And so these are my 3 options that I give for them to practice. But we always start at the top because they need to practice recognizing what's going on inside of them. And the other thing that's really interesting right now is you ask a person how they feel, and most of the time they say, I don't know. Like we're actually, as a human race right now, we're actually losing touch with what the emotion actually is. Can't even give it a name. And you'll hear people say they don't even know what it is. And so here's the common 10 emotions that are on the top of the charts that people are experiencing. But of course, I don't know if you've looked it up, but there's over 4,200 emotions that they've found, you know, for us to like choose from. And it's like, wow, that's a lot. So these are the emotions that I suggest to an individual to go looking for. It's like kind of like cleaning up your room. And this is a weird analogy, but my son one day said, he says, Dad, why do you have people like go look for negative emotions? And I said, well, let's just imagine this. Let's say there was a poopy diaper somewhere in the house. Do we just leave it? And he's like, no. And I go, what happens after time? It just gets terrible. It just gets gross. And I go, yeah, that's what happens to emotions. An emotion left alone becomes more dangerous by the hour. It becomes more dangerous, reckless, and hurtful by the hour. It doesn't dissipate on the inside of you. And some people believe that emotions just evaporate from them. Emotions need to be removed from you. So I tell them, I go, we go look for these emotions because we're cleaning up the house. You know, your body is the home. And every negative emotion that's kept inside, that's gonna hurt you after a while. And if you're, you know, I've met people before who say, I don't have any negative emotions. I'm like, that's awesome. Wait till tomorrow. You'll have something happen. Now, so you take those emotions, but here's the emotions that I then guide them to input or upload inside them. And it's like, what do you mean by input or upload? And I said, that's the other problem is people don't know how to infuse themselves with an emotion. They don't even know how to build themselves with emotions. They just wait until happiness shows up. Or they wait until strong shows up. Or they wait until love shows. But you can actually bring it in. And you can actually bring it to be larger and larger amounts on the inside of us. So you actually use the exact same sentences. So watch this. Oh wait, let me go back. I feel happy because. I feel happy at mom because, or I feel happy about mom because, or I feel happy about school because. Use the exact same sentences, but now instead of plugging in a negative emotion to see if you can find it, you plug in a good emotion. And because you now are journaling about the good emotion, you train your brain to find the emotion, bring it in, and stack yourself full of happiness. Like you stack yourself up. Or you can unload, and then you upload. It's like you literally are working on managing what's going on in the inside. And every single one of us has got this in us. You have it inside you. And you wish you had this. I love the tickled one. I feel tickled because. That's just so fun. It's so fun. But you do that one, I feel tickled because the craziest, funnest memories will come to you about being tickled. It's so good. But if you're not using an emotional management technique every day, you are not making the best choices in your life. Because your internal emotions are coming up and changing your mind. Your negative emotions are coming up and changing your mind. You want to know where doubt comes from? Doubt comes from negative emotions that have lowered you. They've lowered your confidence. They've lowered your clarity. No wonder so many people have doubt. Hesitation? Hesitation comes from the fact you don't have positive energy inside of you. You don't have good energy. You got too much of this. You want to help somebody remove doubt and remove hesitation? Then they pick one of these emotions, they go looking for it, they find it, they write it down, they journal it, then they throw it away. But if we can unload what is damaging us, and we can upload and gather our memories, our experiences, what's happening in our life right now, we can upload this, we change as a person. We're more confident, we're more clear, we're more focused, we make choices. We just become relentless at forward movement. It's just so empowering. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So here's the suggestions. 10 minutes. 10 minutes on clearing out of emotion. You either write it or type it. Some people are really good at typing. Some people, they really like handwriting, and there's debates on both sides are like which one's the best. To me, it's just do the work. Just do the work. 10 minutes a day. Okay, let me see if I got, or I look at number 2, what's bothering me? Oh, I'm frustrated. Okay, I feel frustrated because. And then I clear it out, then you come down here to number 4, you throw the piece of paper away. Never read it again, don't show it to a person, throw it away. Then take 10 more minutes, and it's like, okay, what's good? I feel tickled because, or I feel happy because. Now the first time a person goes to do this, it feels so weird. It feels so weird. In fact, the biggest complaint I ever hear about somebody who's starting to manage emotions is this is their biggest complaint. I don't like journaling about frustration because I can actually feel it. I'm like, it's inside you. Where was it before? I don't know, but it came from somewhere. I'm like, you wrote, I feel frustrated. That means it was hidden, and now you brought it up. What are you going to do with it? I don't know, I don't like the feeling. I go, I know, it's in you. Put it out on paper. And they think, people who are uneducated about emotional management, they think by writing about it that you manifest it. It's like, no, you are clearing out the trash. You got to take out the trash every day or your home gets stinky. And when somebody gets stinky inside, you get ornery. Moody, ornery, short, critical of other people, can't make decisions. You go to bed at night and you're like, I made no progress. That's your negative emotions. Just ate you up that day. But somebody who takes 10 minutes, writes out the emotions of the negative, take 10 minutes, write about some good, you give yourself 3-4 days, oh my goodness, you will find yourself with a higher level of self-control just within a couple days. It is so good. But guess what happens? Guess what happens? It's weird. No, I just need to go work. I just have to get my to-do list done, then I'll be happy. And I'm not going to ask for a raise of hands, but you know, even when you got your to-do list done, it wasn't a happy moment. It's not there. Getting more done doesn't make you happy. What makes you happy is you get that stuff out of you. Get the yucky out of you that's just sitting in there, and you put in some good. So I don't know where this is going to start, and I know some people are already doing this in some schools, and I've got teachers who have come to my classes, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that. My sister and her friend are teachers down in New Mexico at an elementary school. They came to Master Your Influence, and they saw me teach this. And afterwards they were like, can we take this to school? Can we do this at school? And I go, well, I don't know. Can you talk about emotions in school? And they're like, yeah, we have third graders. Do you think we should teach third graders? I'm like, if they can hear you and if they can write something, go teach them. So they put it into practice that students show up, they all go to their bin, they get their journal out, and they all journal for 20 minutes. 10 minutes of writing out the paper. They tear the page out of the journal, and there's a trash can in the corner of the classroom. And they walk up, and then they tear the paper into tiny bits, and they know nobody will ever read it, and they throw it in the trash. Then they go back, sit down, and then they journal out the good things of life. And then they're done, and then they go put their journals in their bin. But it's a 20-minute exercise, and it takes some time. But the stories that have happened to these kids, oh my goodness. They told me that this little boy, he wrote out his page, and he rips the page out of his paper, and he just goes, go away! You know, he tears it up, and he goes to the trash can, he throws it away, and he walks up to them, and he goes, oh my gosh, this feels so much better. And they're like, you okay? Yeah, my mom and dad were fighting last night, like all night long, and I just kept thinking, I can't wait till I get to school and get all of this out of me. Like he's counting on this teacher at school because he loved the process at school because it just helped him feel like he was doing so much better. Because he's not going to get that at home. He's not going to get it at home. I mean, you go knock on the doors in this neighborhood and ask them, and ask every person, hey, do you use emotional release management techniques? And notice how many people say, yeah, I do it every day for 10 or 15 minutes every day. And then when we look at the problems, we wonder why we have problems. It's because people who are emotionally packed up, they grow up to be adults and they still don't know how to manage their emotions, yet it is something we face every day, every moment, in every relationship. And if we don't manage these three key elements of imagery and the internal critic and these emotions, we can teach kids all you want, but they will get to the point where they don't feel like it. And we all know it's happening. So I really believe we empower them with their smarts, we help them manage their emotions, we get them back up online so their confidence, their self-esteem is in line with their goals, then it's a done deal. We got kids that are empowered, super empowered, because they know how to manage themselves. So Oak mentioned my crazy YouTube videos that are on there. There's a bunch. There's about 150 videos on there if you want to, lots of different topics. It all surrounds and focuses on these 3 key elements. And you can go there and watch them if you want. But it's Kirk Duncan -3 key elements, and you'll find that channel. There's about 100, I think it's about 175 or 180 right now. But the most important thing though is that we're empowering them on the inside so they can manage themselves, because I have a family, and these are my 2 grandbabies, and I got another grandbaby coming, and super tickled about them. But I just love hearing that my 3 boys, right there in the back, my 3 boys, they all know the techniques, and they all use the techniques. And it just helps me as a dad to know, and helps me as a husband to my wife, Kimberly, that we're handling what's controlling us on the inside. And if we can be more clear and more in a line on the inside, then these grandkids have a chance. They have a chance, and you better believe they're gonna learn about imagery and their inside voice and emotions, because that's what I believe are the 3 key elements. Thank you.